Welcome back to Stories Aloud, where books meet reflection. Today's story is Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia, a book that challenges the way we think about aging and health. It's not just about adding years to your life, but adding life to your years. Because longevity, as Attia shows us, is both a science and an art, a daily choice to live with intention.
It really is. And this isn't just a collection of quick tips. It's asking for a fundamental shift in how we even think about health. We're often conditioned to be passive about it, right? Only paying attention when something breaks.
Yeah, reactively.
Exactly. But this book insists on, an active approach. You're the architect of your own life, moving way beyond just reacting to problems.
And that whole architectural idea kicks off with what he calls the problem of the river. I thought that analogy was just spot on for explaining where medicine often falls short.
Oh, absolutely. It's perfect.
We spend so much energy, so many resources trying to, pull people out of the river after they've fallen, in treating heart attacks, late-stage cancer, managing diabetes when it's already advanced. But the real goal, the shift he's pushing for, is to move upstream, figure out why people are falling in to begin with.
That analogy is so central, isn't it, to understanding the failure mode. Our current system, let's call it Medicine 2.0, it's actually incredible for acute things. You break a bone, get a nasty infection. Modern medicine is amazing.
Right, emergencies.
But it's fundamentally reactive. And it really, really struggles with what Attia calls the slow death.
The slow death. That's the chronic stuff, the gradual breakdown.
Precisely. It's the predictable, chronic diseases that, statistically speaking, are most likely to end your life. Doesn't matter how wealthy you are, really. He calls them the four horsemen.
Okay, the four horsemen. Let's name them.
Cardiovascular disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, think Alzheimer's primarily, and metabolic dysfunction, which mostly means type 2 diabetes and its related issues.
Got it. So the goal isn't some sci-fi immortality thing. It's about pushing the onset of those four as far back as possible, living long but also living well.
Exactly, delaying them until the very, very end of a long, vigorous life.
Which really defines the core mission here, doesn't it? Focusing on health span, not just lifespan. We all get lifespan, a number of birthdays. But health span, that's the quality metric.
Health span is absolutely the key. It's the period of your life you live without significant disease or disability holding you back. Medicine 2.0, it did a pretty good job extending lifespan over the last century.
Yeah, people are living longer, technically.
But often, that extra time comes with a heavy burden of illness, right?
Mm.
People spending maybe decades in poor health. So the goal of this whole longevity science is what he calls a compression of morbidity.
Compression of morbidity, meaning you squeeze the sick part.
You got it. Make that period of being unwell or unable to function as short as possible. Ideally, just compress right into the final months or maybe years of life.
Okay, so to pull that off, we need to shift away from Medicine 2.0 thinking entirely and embrace this Medicine 3.0. For someone listening, what does that actually look like? How is a Medicine 3.0 doctor different?
Well, Medicine 3.0 is fundamentally proactive, it's predictive, and it's deeply personalized. So instead of waiting for you to show symptoms,
Which is often too late for chronic stuff.
way too late. Instead, the 3.0 approach uses really advanced diagnostics, blood tests, imaging, genetics to figure out your specific risk profile maybe decades before anything actually goes wrong. And it's super personal, recognizing that, what works for one person might even be harmful for another. And crucially, it forces you to consider the risk of not acting.
That idea, the risk of inaction, I find that really powerful. It flips the script on the usual wait-and-see approach.
It absolutely does.
Because if you wait until, say, your blood sugar is officially in the diabetic range, haven't you already missed years, maybe decades, where preventing it was much easier?
You've missed the prime window, exactly. These chronic diseases, they don't happen overnight. They simmer for decades. Your standard blood test might look normal, according to those broad Medicine 2.0 ranges, but you could still be on a clear path towards, say, heart disease 15 years from now.
Right.
Medicine 3.0 sees those subtle trends and says, okay, let's intervene now with lifestyle changes, maybe medication, whatever's appropriate. And here's the kicker. In this model, you, the patient, you're not passive anymore.
Okay.
You become the driver. The CEO of your own health, basically. You have to engage with the data, take responsibility for the journey.
That definitely sounds like more effort, maybe more cost up front too, which I know can be a hurdle for people. But Attia stresses something before we even get into the what to do. Strategy first. Tactics without strategy? That's just noise, right?
It's Sun Tzu, basically applied to health. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. You need the why, understanding your personal risks, understanding these horsemen before you jump into how, like specific exercises or diet.
Yeah, otherwise you start some new routine, it gets tough, and you just stopped because you don't really know why you're doing it.
Exactly. The strategy provides the motivation, the long-term vision.
Okay, let's dive into that strategy then by confronting these horsemen. But first, he talks about the thing we're trying to prevent, the marginal decade. What exactly is that?
The marginal decade. Yeah, it's that period, often the last 10 years or so of life, where you see a pretty sharp drop-off across the board. Cognitive function declines, physical ability fades, emotional well-being can suffer too.
So it's the period marked by frailty, maybe needing help with basic things, not being able to do what you love.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Dependency, inability to engage fully with life. The whole strategy of Medicine 3.0 is aimed at squaring the longevity curve.
Squaring the curve, meaning staying high functioning for longer.
Right. Keeping your physical and cognitive abilities high until, ideally, a very steep, short decline right at the very end. So instead of a long, slow slide into the marginal decade, you get what he calls a bonus decade, extra years of high-quality, active life.
So we're fighting decline on three fronts at once then: physical, cognitive, and emotional. A failure in one can kind of trigger the others.
Absolutely. They're interconnected. You can be physically strong, but if your mind is failing, or if you're sharp mentally but deeply unhappy or isolated, well, you haven't really achieved the goal of maximizing quality life, have you? You've got to shore up all three areas.
Makes sense. Okay, horseman number one, cardiovascular disease. Still the biggest killer worldwide, and what's scary is how sneaky it can be.
It's terrifyingly sneaky.
Yeah.
Often, the very first sign something's wrong is sudden death. The book really pushes us past the old, simplistic, good versus bad cholesterol story.
Yeah, the LDL-C number everyone gets.
Right. Attia argues the real issue isn't the total mass of that LDL cholesterol, but the actual number of particles carrying it, specifically particles that have a protein called apolipoprotein B, or ApoB, on their surface.
Okay, hold on. Why does counting the particles matter more than just weighing the cholesterol inside them?
Think of it like traffic. Imagine two scenarios. One highway lane filled with huge, fluffy transport trucks carrying cargo. That's like large, buoyant LDL particles. And another lane jammed bumper to bumper with tiny, dense motorcycles, each carrying a small package. Small, dense LDL particles.
Okay.
Both lanes might be carrying the same total weight of cargo, that's your LDL-C mass. But the motorcycles, the sheer number of tiny particles, they have way more chances to, like, sneak off the highway, get into trouble, infiltrate the artery wall, get oxidized, and start forming plaque.
So more particles equals more opportunities for damage, even if the total cholesterol mass is the same.
Exactly. APOB is basically a count of the number of those potentially dangerous ships carrying the cargo. So minimizing your lifetime exposure to a high number of APOB particles is the key preventative strategy.
And the approach is hit it hard, hit it early, like his snake analogy.
The sooner you cut the head off the snake, the lower the risk that it will bite you. Absolutely. The aim is to keep ApoB levels really low for as long as possible, ideally throughout your entire adult life. That cumulative burden matters.
Okay.
And this is also where something called lipoprotein, or LPA, fits in. It's another type of particle, highly prone to causing plaque, and your level is almost entirely determined by genetics.
So if you have high LPA, lifestyle changes alone won't fix that specific risk?
Correct. It means you have to be even more aggressive about controlling all the other risk factors, like your ApoB level, blood pressure, metabolic health, because you're starting with one strike against you, genetically speaking.
But practically, say I'm 35, feel fine, my standard cholesterol panel looks okay according to my regular doctor. How do I convince them operating in that Medicine 2.0 world to order an ApoB test or an LPA test, which might not even be covered by insurance?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the real friction point. It means you have to become your own advocate. You have to understand why these tests matter. The book really empowers you with that knowledge.
So you might have to push for it or even go outside the standard system.
Sometimes, yes. Maybe you find a lab that offers direct-to-consumer testing. Maybe you seek out a physician who already practices within this Medicine 3.0 framework. You have to weigh the hassle or cost against, well, the potential cost of inaction down the road. Understanding that future risk makes the present effort worthwhile. You also want tests like a coronary artery calcium, or CAXA, score later on, probably in your 40s or 50s, to see if plaque is actually building up.
Okay, makes sense. Let's move to horseman number 2, cancer. Still a huge challenge, billions spent on research.
And it's still a leading cause of death, yeah. Cancer isn't one disease, of course, it's many. But they all share that characteristic of uncontrolled cell growth, usually driven by genetic mutations. Attia lays out a three-pronged strategy: prevention, targeted treatment, and early detection.
Prevention seems linked back to metabolic health again.
Very much so. We'll get deeper into nutrition later. But things like persistently high insulin levels, high blood sugar, chronic inflammation, they can create an environment in the body that basically fuels cancer growth. So managing metabolic health is a core part of cancer prevention.
And where's the cutting edge in targeted treatments now?
It's really exciting, actually.
Yeah.
Two main areas. One is exploiting cancer's unique metabolism. Many cancer cells have this weird quirk called the Warburg effect. They gobble up glucose like crazy, way more than normal cells.
So you can try to starve them or target that pathway?
Potentially, yes. Research is ongoing there.
Yeah.
But the other big area, maybe even more revolutionary, is immunotherapy.
Immunotherapy, that's harnessing your own immune system, right? Like CRT cells or checkpoint inhibitors. Can you break those down simply?
Sure. Checkpoint inhibitors. Basically, they take the brakes off your immune system. See, cancer cells are sneaky. They can sometimes display signals that tell immune cells, don't attack me, I'm friendly. Checkpoint inhibitors block those don't attack signals, unleashing the immune system.
Okay, unleashing the hounds.
Pretty much. And CAR-T cell therapy is even more personalized. They actually take T cells, a type of immune cell, out of your body, genetically engineer them in a lab to specifically recognize and target your unique cancer cells, grow billions of them, and then infuse them back into you. It's like a living drug designed just for you.
Wow. That's incredible. But none of these amazing treatments work as well if the cancer's found really late. Which brings us to early detection.
Critically important. The earlier you catch almost any cancer, the higher the chance of cure. Attia is a big proponent of more aggressive and earlier screening than standard guidelines often recommend. This could mean things like whole-body MRIs for some people, or looking into the emerging field of liquid biopsies.
Liquid biopsies. That's the blood test for cancer.
Essentially, yeah. They look for tiny fragments of DNA shed by tumors that circulate in your bloodstream. The hope is to detect cancer when it's just a tiny cluster of cells, long before it causes symptoms or shows up on a regular scan. That's the game changer.
Okay. Horseman 3, this might be the one people fear most. Neurodegenerative disease, losing your memory, losing yourself.
Yeah, the fear of dementia, especially Alzheimer's, often outweighs the fear of death itself for many people. It's the loss of identity, of autonomy. The book tackles the genetics here, particularly the APOE gene. Having the E4 variant, especially 2 copies, significantly increases your risk.
But he's very clear. It's risk, not destiny. Right.
Absolutely adamant about that. It's a marker for risk, not a guarantee. It doesn't mean you will get Alzheimer's. What it does mean is you have decades of advance warning. It tells you that you need to be incredibly proactive about prevention. It's knowledge you can act on.
So if genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls a trigger, kind of, what are the most effective interventions then?
It really comes back to that central theme. What's good for the heart is good for the brain. They are intimately linked. Your brain is incredibly hungry for oxygen and stable glucose delivered via blood vessels.
So clogged heart arteries likely means clogged brain arteries too.
Very likely. The same process, atherosclerosis, happens in the small vessels of the brain. So managing all those cardiovascular risk factors, we talked about ApoB, blood pressure, LPA, and crucially, preventing insulin resistance and keeping blood sugar stable, those are your primary defenses against cognitive decline. Vascular health is brain health.
And what about building up the brain's resilience directly?
That's the idea of cognitive reserve. Think of it like building extra roads in your brain. By challenging your brain with complex, novel activities, learning an instrument, a new language, engaging in complex problem solving, you actually build new connections between neurons, a process called synaptogenesis.
So if some pathways get damaged by disease later on?
The brain has alternative routes it can use to bypass the damage, maintaining function for longer. It basically delays the symptoms of the disease, even if the underlying pathology is there. It buys you time.
Fascinating. Okay, final horseman. Number 4, metabolic dysfunction. This feels like the one most tied to our modern lifestyle, the crisis of abundance.
Totally. Our genes were forged in times of scarcity, were optimized to store energy efficiently, but now we're swimming in cheap, easy-to-get, hyper-palatable processed foods packed with sugar and refined carbs. Our ancient biology just can't cope.
And the result is this epidemic we barely talk about, like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease,
Oh,
NFLD.
it's a silent epidemic,
And-
NAFLD, and it's more severe inflammatory form.
Yeah.
Nanophospatitis,
No.
alcoholic steatohepatitis, they affect maybe a quarter of the entire global population. Think about
A
that.
quarter. Wow. And most people don't even know they have it.
Often not until significant liver damage has occurred. It starts with fat accumulating in the liver. If that triggers inflammation, ASH, it can progress to fibrosis, scarring, cirrhosis, even liver cancer. And this is happening in people who don't drink excessively, the main culprit. Usually excess consumption of sugars, especially fructose, and refined carbohydrates.
And the book makes a really important point here. We often focus on obesity as the problem, but Attia says it's more of a symptom.
Exactly. You can be thin on the outside, but metabolically unhealthy on the inside. Tuophy, he calls it. Thin outside, fat inside. Conversely, some people who meet the criteria for obesity are actually metabolically quite healthy with good insulin sensitivity.
So the real villain isn't necessarily weight itself, but what's happening underneath.
It's the underlying physiology. The core problem is usually insulin resistance. Your cells stop responding properly to the hormone insulin, and the resulting high levels of insulin circulating in your blood called hyperinsulinemia. That state drives inflammation, messes up lipid metabolism, and contributes directly or indirectly to all four horsemen.
So tackling insulin resistance, that's like the master key for unlocking health span.
It really is. And the good news here, maybe the best news, is that out of all the horsemen, this is the one where we have the most direct, immediate control, our agency, as he puts it. It comes down largely to what we eat, when we eat, how much we eat, and how much we move.
Perfect transition. That brings us straight into the tactics, starting with pillar 1. Exercise. He doesn't just say it's good for you, he calls it the most powerful drug we have.
And it's not an exaggeration. Study after study shows that high levels of fitness and activity are as effective, sometimes more effective, than many common medications at reducing your risk of dying from all the major chronic diseases.
Wow.
It's a systemic intervention. It benefits your heart, your brain, your muscles, your metabolism, everything, which is why it has to be the foundation.
He also pushes back against the endless debate, cardio versus weights, which is better. His answer is basically
Both. It's yes and yes. The longevity approach demands competence across multiple domains. You can't just be a great runner or a super strong lifter. You need a blend.
So how do you structure that? How do you figure out what kind of exercise to do?
He uses this brilliant framework called the centenarian decathlon. It completely reframes your goal. Instead of just vague fitness, you think about specific functions you want to maintain deep into old age.
Okay, like a personal Olympics for when you're 90. Give me some examples.
They're super practical, real-world things, like maybe event 1 is, can you hike uphill for an hour without being totally wiped out? Event 2, can you pick up a squirming grandchild or lift a 30-pound suitcase into the overhead bin on a plane?
Ah, okay. Functional stuff.
Exactly. A really critical one is, can you get up off the floor using ideally just one hand or maybe no hands at all, quickly and easily? So you design your training now to ensure you can crush those 10 events, your personal decathlon, when you're 80, 90, even 100. You're training to be a functional, well-rounded athlete for life.
I love that framing. It makes the why so much clearer. So this decathlon training covers 3 main areas: aerobic fitness, strength, and stability. Let's start with aerobic endurance, and this metric he emphasizes, VO2 max.
Yeah, VO2 max. It's basically the maximum amount of oxygen your body can take in and use during intense exercise. Attia highlights data showing it's one of the strongest predictors of longevity we have. Stronger than smoking status, blood pressure, cholesterol in some studies.
Really stronger than smoking.
The data is pretty striking. Moving from the lowest 25% of VO2 max fitness up to just the next level, like below average, can cut your risk of dying from any cause by something like 50%. That's a massive benefit from improving your aerobic engine.
Okay, so how do we build that engine? He talks a lot about zone 2 training, which sounds kind of easy, moderate intensity.
It feels relatively easy, yeah. Zone 2 is that level of exertion where you could hold a conversation, but maybe not comfortably sing or talk in long paragraphs. You're working, but it's sustainable for a long time.
And why is that intensity so foundational?
Because it does something crucial at the cellular level. It powerfully stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis.
Okay, unpack mitochondrial biogenesis for us. What does making new mitochondria actually do?
Think of mitochondria as the little power plants inside your cells. They're responsible for generating energy, especially by burning fat for fuel. Zone 2 training signals your body to build more of these power plants, and just as importantly, it makes the ones you already have much more efficient at using fat.
Ah, so it improves your metabolic flexibility, makes you better at burning fat.
Precisely. This directly combats insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction. Horseman number 4. You get better at clearing fats from your blood, your muscles become more insulin sensitive. Zone 2 is like essential infrastructure maintenance for your metabolism. You need a lot of it, maybe 3-4 hours a week, he suggests.
Okay. Moving to the second part of the exercise pillar, strength. We're fighting that age-related muscle loss, sarcopenia.
Yeah, sarcopenia. It starts creaking in as early as your 30s, and it accelerates if you don't actively fight it. Losing muscle isn't just about looking less defined. Muscle is a vital metabolic organ. It helps regulate blood sugar. It's a reservoir of amino acids you need if you get sick. It's critical.
And the way to fight it is?
Heavy resistance training. You need to lift heavy things relative to your ability, of course, to really stimulate those fast-twitch type 2 muscle fibers.
Why are those type 2 fibers so important?
They're the ones responsible for power, speed, and reacting quickly, like catching yourself if you stumble. They're also the fibers that tend to shrink the most with age and inactivity.
Right.
You need significant load, that high intensity, to force them to adapt and grow, or at least maintain themselves.
So it's not just about endurance, it's about raw strength too.
Absolutely. Muscle strength is almost as strongly correlated with living longer as aerobic fitness is. And a really simple but powerful
Grip strength, like squeezing one of those handle things, seems kind of old school.
It sounds simple, but the data is incredibly consistent. Grip strength is a surprisingly strong predictor of future disability, cognitive decline, and overall mortality risk. It's a good proxy for your overall neuromuscular health, how well your nerves and muscles work together to generate force. Essential for everything from opening a jar to preventing a fall.
Wow, okay. Note to self, work on grip strength. Now the final element of exercise, stability. This feels like the unsung hero.
Totally the unsung hero, often neglected because it's not as glamorous as lifting heavy or running fast. But as Attia quotes, the loftier the building, the deeper the foundation must be. Stability is that foundation.
What does stability mean in this context? Is it just core strength?
It's broader than just core strength, though that's part of it. Stability is your body's subconscious ability to control movement, maintain balance, and resist injury. Think about it. What's the main reason older adults stop being active? Often it's because of an injury, a fall, a bad back, a tweaked knee that they never fully recover from.
Right, injury derails everything.
Exactly. If your stability is poor, you're basically setting yourself up for injury, which then prevents you from doing the strength and cardio work. It's the base of the pyramid.
So how do you train stability? It's not just planks then.
No, it's much more nuanced. It involves things like working on your foot and ankle mechanics, even exercises like toe yoga to improve control and sensory feedback from your feet. It involves mastering fundamental movement patterns, and critically, it involves breath work. How you breathe directly impacts your core stability and spinal control. It's about building resilience against injury from the ground up.
Okay, that's a comprehensive look at Pillar 1. Let's move to Pillar 2, nutritional biochemistry. I like how he renames diet to get away from the tribalism.
Yeah, the diet wars are so unproductive, aren't they? Keto versus vegan versus paleo, people treat them like religions. Using nutritional biochemistry shifts the focus to the science. How do specific foods, the proteins, fats, carbs, actually impact your individual biology? Your glucose, your insulin, your lipids.
Because there's no single perfect diet for everyone.
Absolutely not. It's scientifically absurd to think there would be. Personalization is key. But that said, there is a near universal critique of the default way many people eat. The standard American diet, or SAD.
The SA diet, what's the core problem there?
It basically boils down to an overload of cheap, hyperpalatable, highly processed stuff. Foods packed with refined sugars, especially fructose, industrial seed oils, refined flours, ingredients that were rare or non-existent for most of human history, and certainly for our great-grandparents.
And that overload drives metabolic dysfunction.
Directly. So the first strategic step is breaking free from that default SAD pattern. He outlines 3 main levers you can pull. Caloric restriction, CR, just eating less overall. Dietary restriction, DR, cutting out or reducing specific things like sugar or carbs. And time restriction, TR, limiting when you eat, like intermittent fasting.
So you can choose one or combine them based on what works for you.
It's about finding a sustainable strategy to reduce your intake of those metabolically damaging foods. But regardless of which lever you pull, CR, DR, TRDR, there's one nutrient he argues is absolutely non-negotiable, especially as we get older.
Let me guess. Protein.
Protein, yes.
Yeah.
Crucial for fighting sarcopenia, maintaining muscle mass as you age. And he advocates for a surprisingly high intake, especially if you're active. Around 1 gram per pound of your ideal body weight per day.
1 gram per pound. That's way higher than the standard RDA guidelines. Doesn't that raise concerns like for kidney health?
That's a common concern, yeah.
Ah.
But the research suggesting protein harms healthy kidneys largely comes from studies on people who already had kidney disease. For individuals with normal kidney function, the overwhelming evidence shows that high protein intake, even at that 1 kilopound level, is safe.
And necessary for muscle.
Absolutely necessary. Muscle is metabolically active tissue. It's crucial for strength, for bone health, for recovering from illness. He argues that cutting calories at the expense of adequate protein is a really bad trade-off for longevity. You sacrifice muscle, which is exactly what you need to protect.
Okay. And just for navigating the supermarket confusion, he offers that simple rule of thumb.
Love this one. If your great-grandmother would not recognize it as food, you're probably better off not eating it.
Huh. That cuts through a lot of noise, doesn't it? Processed snacks, weird ingredients.
Exactly. It steers you back toward whole, unprocessed foods, the stuff humans ate before the industrial food complex took over. Simple, but effective.
Okay, pillar 3, sleep. This one feels like it's finally getting the respect it deserves, but maybe wasn't always the case. Attia talks about his own experiences in medical training.
Oh yeah, the culture in medicine, and frankly in much of high-achieving society, used to treat sleep deprivation almost like a badge of honor. It was incredibly misguided. His stories about nearly falling asleep driving during residency are chilling. The evolutionary point is strong. If sleep wasn't critically important for survival, why would evolution select for a behavior that leaves us paralyzed and vulnerable for a third of our lives? It must be doing something essential.
And what are the tangible consequences for our longevity goals if we consistently skimp on sleep?
They're pretty devastating, actually. Chronic poor sleep is directly linked to increased risk of dying from all causes. It messes with cognitive function. Things like memory consolidation and clearing out brain waste products like amyloid happen during deep sleep.
The stuff linked to Alzheimer's.
Exactly. And it wreaks havoc on your metabolism. Even just one night of bad sleep can make you significantly more insulin resistant the next day, almost like someone with prediabetes. It disrupts hunger hormones, making you crave junk food. It impairs emotional regulation. It truly is foundational.
So what's the target? How much sleep should we actually aim for?
He recommends aiming for 7.5 to 8.5 hours of actual sleep per night, consistently, not just time in bed, but quality sleep.
And how do we get there? Any key practical tips?
The basics of sleep hygiene are crucial. Consistency is king. Try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, even weekends, to anchor your body clock. Make your bedroom a sanctuary. Pitch black, quiet, and cooler temperatures help initiate sleep.
And the big modern challenges. Screens and alcohol.
Huge ones. Avoid blue light from screens for at least an hour or two before bed, as it suppresses melatonin production. And alcohol. It might make you feel drowsy and fall asleep faster, but it absolutely demolishes your sleep quality later in the night, especially REM and deep sleep. It's really counterproductive.
Right. Okay, finally, pillar 4, emotional health. This might seem a bit separate from biology, but Attia puts it right alongside the others.
He makes a powerful case that it's absolutely central. His point is blunt. Why would you want to live longer if you're so unhappy? Emotional suffering can completely undermine any physical gains you make.
How does he connect emotional health to longevity?
Often through the lens of unresolved trauma. And he talks about both big T trauma, major events like abuse, combat, loss, and little t trauma, more chronic, maybe less obvious things like persistent criticism, emotional neglect, difficult family dynamics growing up.
And these past experiences shape our adult behavior. He uses that trauma tree idea.
Yeah, the framework is that our current maladaptive behaviors, maybe chronic anger, people-pleasing, workaholism, relationship issues, those are the visible leads and branches. But they often stem from deeper roots. Those early experiences, attachment wounds, unmet needs.
So things like striving relentlessly for success, the resume virtues, might actually be a coping mechanism.
Very often, yes. It can be driven by a deep-seated need for validation or control that wasn't met healthily in childhood. He contrasts these resume virtues, achievements, titles, wealth, with eulogy virtues.
Eulogy virtues, what you want people to say about you at your funeral.
Exactly. Things like your kindness, your integrity, your relationships, your character, how present you were for people. He argues that true fulfillment, the kind that makes a long life worth living, comes from cultivating those virtues.
And the goal of working on this emotional pillar isn't perfection, but...
It's about authenticity. He quotes this idea of unbecoming everything that isn't really you so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. Peeling back the layers of coping mechanisms and defenses to connect with your true self. That's the foundation for genuine well-being that makes the extra years meaningful.
Wow. Okay, that brings it all together. We've covered the strategy medicine 3.0, understanding the horsemen and the four tactical pillars, exercise, nutritional biochemistry, sleep, and emotional health. It's a truly integrated approach.
It really is. And the thread connecting it all, something Attia observed in studying people who live exceptionally long and healthy lives, centenarians, is resilience. They tend to have this remarkable ability, both biologically and psychologically, to withstand stress and bounce back from challenges.
And that resilience isn't just luck of the genetic draw.
Not entirely. While genetics plays a role, resilience is also a skill, a capability you build through the consistent, daily practice of strengthening these four pillars. It's the outcome of the discipline.
Which leads us perfectly into a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. We often focus on the obvious costs of poor health later in life, the medical bills, the medications. But what about the hidden, ongoing cost? The cost of ignorance.
Not ignorance as in being stupid, but ignorance as in simply not knowing or not acting on what we can know about our own bodies and what drives health. So the question to reflect on is, which one of these four pillars, exercise, nutrition, sleep, or emotional health, is the area where you feel you're currently most ignorant or maybe most resistant to making changes?
And what's the potential cost? How much future health, how much function, how much sheer enjoyment of life might you be leaving on the table by not taking proactive steps in that one area starting today? Your life's trajectory is often more adjustable than you think, but that opportunity requires action.
Food for thought, definitely.
Outlive reminds us that a long life means little without a good one. It's about strength, balance, and the quiet discipline of self-care. If this story inspired you to live better today, share it forward and don't forget to subscribe to Stories Aloud for more life-changing reflections brought to sound. Until next time, keep listening.